The purpose of this video is to go over the various types of Sketcher outputs and how to use them in CATIA version 5. If you ever look at your specification tree and you see a solid feature that typically requires a sketch, but instead underneath of it you see something like this where you either have the little profile icon or maybe a line icon or a circle icon like we see here, this is an example of using the Sketcher outputs to define a sketch-based feature like a pad, pocket, shaft, groove, etc. So let's take a deep dive at the 4 different options. In this part file, I am going to activate the Sketcher. And now that I'm in the Sketcher workbench, I want to draw your attention to the Tools toolbar, which is where all of our output icons are stored. To begin, I'm going to create an elongated hole. Now the size of this elongated hole isn't important, but I will throw some constraints on here quickly just to make sure that I have a fully constrained sketch. The next thing that I want to do is define within the same sketch the shape of the next protrusion that's going to take place. Typically you have to do this as a separate sketch. However, if you're using the output features, you can combine them all inside of one single sketch. That is the added benefit of using the output commands, is that everything can be stored nicely inside of one singular sketch, and you can of course dimension off of these elements as you're constraining the sketch. So to make this secondary protrusion shape, I am going to start with the profile command. I want to reuse the right side of this arc, but at this vertex point I will angle a line inward, then I will grab a tangent arc off of that, and then finally drawing another angled line to the vertex on the bottom of that right arc. Again, I do need to make sure that I fully constrain my sketch, so I will add a tangency on the bottom. Then I will apply a symmetry constraint between my 2 angled lines and this horizontal reference. I will give this a total horizontal length, and finally specifying the angle of the line to the horizontal reference. Next, I will create one additional shape that I'm going to use to create basically a through hole, so making one more circle at the center point of that right arc. So again, traditionally CATIA would yell at you if you were to try and create a pad feature from this singular sketch, because CATIA would not find a closed entity. What we need to do with our output features is to tell CATIA within this same singular sketch to segment our different shapes out. To make that segmentation, we are going to utilize those output features here in the Tools toolbar. To start off, I am going to begin with the circle. The circle is a singular entity, and if you are trying to output or segment a singular entity, you are going to use the icon called Output Feature. Just simply click on the icon and then select your singular item. As soon as you do that, you will notice that that item does become thicker in nature. You have also created a new branch of your tree. To see this, I am going to expand my specification tree underneath of that sketch. You have a 4th sub-branch under that sketch called Outputs, and you can see that it's registering that you outputted that one circle. Now the next 2 shapes that I would like to pad independently from one another would be the overall outer elongated hole, and then this inner shape here. So those shapes are comprised of more than one entity. In fact, it's 2 arcs and then 2 line segments. So anytime that you want to combine more than one entity, you have to use the profile feature icon. When you click on the profile feature icon, you do have a small dialog box that you have to fill out. What I'm going to do is give it a name. I'm going to call this my outer profile. You can also choose a color of your choice. For the outer profile, I'm going to have that to show up as blue. Now it will not show up as blue until after we've exited the sketch. But for right now, I'm going to use this method called wire automatic propagation. Automatic propagation means that essentially it's going to propagate around whatever entity that you click on. So for instance, if I were to select this top horizontal line Again, it becomes slightly thicker, but you can see that it grabbed the left tangent arc and then also the bottom horizontal line. Now to finish this shape, I do need to come over here and grab that right side arc. So to finish that, just click on it, and now you can see that we have the outer profile selected. To click OK, you can see that it also has been added to the outputs branch of our tree. That leaves us with our last profile, this shape here in the middle. Once again, it is going to reuse the right side arc. Click on Profile Feature. Give it a meaningful descriptive name. I will call this my middle profile. I will color this one red. The other option that you have is something called Wire Explicit Definition. This is where you would actually have to click all the way around the shape. And again, I am reusing this right side arc, so I would click on that again. When I click OK, you can see I have 3 completely separate entities: the circle, the outer profile, and then that middle profile. When I exit the sketch, now is where I can see the color coding. And before we make these with pad features, I'm just going to hover over them so you can see how they are highlighting. All right, so the circle is clearly the circle. The outer profile is that completely created outer shape with the elongated hole. And then the middle profile would be this shape here. Now I'm ready to make my pad features. These pad features can be created just like normal. You select on the pad icon. From the tree or from the model, you can select on your closed loop shape. So here I might create a pad feature of 20 millimeters in height for the outer profile. Create a separate pad feature for the middle profile. This time let's make it a little bit taller at 51. And then lastly, we can create basically a cutout using this circular shape with a pocket and then clicking here. And then for the dimension type, we'll choose up to next and then click OK. So if you look in the tree, the pad features are referencing the output features. Those output features are individual segments that were all created inside of one singular sketch. Now, there are 2 other output features, so let me show you what those do. If we come back into our initial sketch, one button that we have is called 3D axis. Now what the 3D axis does is it creates an axis line that is going perpendicular to your sketch plane, but it crosses the sketch plane at the point that you select on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this point right here at the center of that right arc. And then when you click on it, this is the one that's a little confusing because you don't see any difference. However, if I do check my tree, I notice that I have an output axis that's based on this point dot 1. So you don't see the axis or the plane until you've exited the sketch. Next, we're going to do the 3D plane. When you click on the 3D plane, you must now select on a linear entity of your sketch. Right? Any linear line it'll allow you to select on. Again, it's deceiving because you don't notice a difference on the screen, but you do see it in the tree. So let's exit our sketch to see what our axis and our plane is doing. Once I exit, you can see that this infinite axis line shows up. Where is that infinite axis line? Well, it's passing right through the center of this circular face. So again, it uses that point that I had clicked on and then makes the axis line basically cross through that point going perpendicular to your sketch plane. And then over here we have a blue output plane. This plane is based upon the location of that line segment in the sketch. So it creates this plane knowing that it has to use this line as its location reference, and then it has to be perpendicular to the sketch plane. So those are your 4 output features. It's a way of creating additional features that can be used independent of one another, all inside of one singular sketch.